Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategy Podcast, back for another episode, and we have Mr. Ray Zinn. Ray is a very interesting guy. He is literally Silicon Valley's longest serving CEO, 37 years at the helm of his company called Micrel. They were a microchip company, and they built it up to about 280 million. Then they went IPO and they sold it off, and everybody made a lot of money. Ray wrote this great book called Tough Things First. And get the book. It's by McGraw-Hill, and it's out there. It is I would call it the entrepreneurial or the strategic entrepreneurial Bible. And so Ray and I are discussing concepts of the book and discussing concepts around business. And even though it's not say direct, hey, do this and your revenues will grow because of this, it's all the supporting things that people miss in business, the psychology and the philosophy behind that, which drives the tactical initiatives that you may hear on the show. So go get the book, and I'm going to go to the interview. You're going to see and hear that Ray, very intelligent guy, has a lot of experience. He's 83 years young. And he started his company because he could no longer be an employee any longer. And in his book, he clearly describes that process and that pathway. We talked a lot about vision. We talk a lot about discipline, grit. We talk a lot about, knowing your numbers, the finance side of the business, as well as your sales numbers. We talk about perspective, if you will, and intuition and different things like that. I think you're really going to love this interview. So let's go to the interview right now. Hey, everyone. This is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategy Podcast, and I am ultra excited to have Mr. Ray Zinn on the call with us today. Ray and I have been talking a couple of times. He's a really fantastic guy, and I will say, more than highly intelligent. So, get out your pen and paper, bring it forward, write down these ideas. We're going to talk a lot today. I'd love to talk about growth and longevity in a business. And, Ray is Silicon Valley's longest serving CEO. Now, not only is that a great, I would say, triumphant accomplishment in most people's lives, but he wrote this book called Tough Things First. Go get the book. Go get the book. Tough Things First by McGraw-Hill. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. And the reason I'm telling you this is I have read, I don't know how many, thousands of books on entrepreneurial endeavors. And this book stuck out as the top book I've ever read. And Ray, I'm not trying to butter you up. I want to welcome you to the show. But the reality is, I was so impressed with the book and our previous conversations. Everybody needed to hear what you have to say. So welcome to the call, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. I really appreciate that intro.
You are welcome. And you built a company. Is it called Micrel, the company?
Micrel.
I love some of the examples in the book, but it's reminiscent of some of the things that I tried to do in my life as well. And so those of you who don't know Micrel or haven't heard of the company, they are a company that produced Ray microchips, correct?
Correct.
Right. And Ray, you brought the company up to $280 million, and then the company went IPO, sold off. And today, Ray spends his time flying back and forth between two states, beautiful states of Montana and California. Ray, I'd love to, on this show, normally what we do is we talk a lot about, specific CEO sales strategies. But in what I saw and what I read in this book, it's all about growth and longevity. So we can talk about growth, but I love your view on longevity, grow it for the long term versus, short-term exit strategies and many companies that and what they do. So let's start out with vision, Ray, if you wouldn't mind. A lot of people talk about vision. They say, well, hey, without vision, the earth shall perish or whatever they quote, but the reality is that vision, I believe, is critical in a company if they want to grow it and continuously grow it and have longevity. Could you describe what you see as vision and how important it is for a company to actually have it?
Well, certainly. So we need to talk about what is vision. Okay, other than just our eyesight, being able to see. Vision has to be something that we have like a dream. It has to be in our mind. We have to actually visualize it in our mind. And that's the problem. So if your vision when you're running your company is just to take a salary or just, provide for your family, get in and get out or whatever, that's your vision. That's more short term. So if your vision is long-term, meaning you have this career path for yourself or your company, then that vision has to say, how do I do that? How do I go from nothing, as you would, to this objective that I see in the future? When I started Micrel in November of 1978, I had a vision at that time, I'm talking about when I first started, of just providing a living for my family, just having a decent job. And as the company began to really succeed, I said, whoa, man, I can really do something with this company. So then my vision kind of shifted a little bit. And I said, man, I'd hope to be able to sell this company within 5 years. And then move on to something else. And then in 5 years, I said, whoa, I can really do even more than that. And so then I said, okay, well, I want to take this company public. And that was in 1985. I got the vision to take the company public, which we did in 1994. Okay. And then when I took the company public, that changed the whole environment. That changed the whole scope of what my investors and my customers expected from the company. So as you see, Doug, as you move along, your vision somewhat changes because when you first start out, you really don't have that knowledge and understanding, because it's like a teenager going into maturity and then getting married and then, getting an education or whatever and moving on in their life. Things change. I mean, your view of things change. Health could be a factor. Your marriage could be a factor. Your family situation could be a factor. The economy could be a factor. So all these factors affect how you view your future. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense to me. And what I find many times when I talk to entrepreneurs, when they're kind of stuck, their vision is, they had an original vision, but it's kind of diminished over time, or it's stuck, and they don't have clarity of where they want to go. And what I loved in the book was you talked about end objective, right? Not just moving the needle for today, but what is the long-term play that you actually want out of the business? And I believe that comes from the initial vision of what we want to create and then staying with it throughout the process and adjusting as we need. Is that a agreeable statement to you, Ray, or would you see it differently?
It is. So it depends upon when you started. So I started in my 30s. That's when I actually, started. And so when you're in your 30s, I was only like 10 years out of college, and you don't know everything. You're still trying to feel your way along in life. I had a young family, and so I didn't have vision of becoming a multi-billion-dollar company back when I started it. I was just trying to get going. Okay, I just trying to get something started. I wished I could say I had this grandiose vision of becoming, a top 100 companies in the world. I that wasn't my vision. I wasn't able to see that at that point. It wasn't, and even when I started college, I wanted to graduate, but I didn't see the end of graduating at that point. I didn't even what I was going to do for a living. I just picked a career or a business objective or a school objective, and then I followed it through, graduated, and then I went on from there. So don't get lost in the weeds. Just keep moving. The whole concept is don't stop. Just keep moving forward. It's like training for a marathon. It's not a sprint. You have to kind of keep building yourself up, maybe running a 3K, then a 5K, then a 10K, then a 20K, and so forth. Just keep moving forward with the end goal of just making yourself accomplish more and more, doing the tough things first, as I talk about in my book. So, but I don't want your listeners to think that back when I was in my 30s that I could see that I was going to be Silicon Valley's longest serving CEO. I didn't know that at the time. I had some ideas in mind. I wanted to have a company that really treated its employees well and that we had a great culture. I wanted that from the very beginning. And that's what allowed me to keep growing and moving the goalposts, as you would, as I moved my career along until I sold the company in 2015 after 37 years. So, in fact, when I first started the company, I had no idea I was going to make 37 years because that would have, I thought people that were in their 70s were already dead. I didn't think that I was going to make it past, into my 80s or whatever. I had no thought of having this company until I was in my 70s. I really didn't. But it's every day you grow and you progress if you keep moving forward and not looking back. So, you don't drive a car by looking in a rearview mirror. You drive a car by looking forward. Okay, you may look at the rearview mirror just as a safety thing, or if you're backing up, but you don't go forward backing up. You look forward to go forward. So, focus on the future. Don't focus on the past.
And I think, one of the anchoring points is you wanted to build a great company culture. And that was the anchoring point. Yeah. And you continue to keep doing that throughout the 37 years that you had the company. And so what I've found with vision a lot of times is we have these visions, as you said, they change, and I'm not 30 any longer. But when I was 30, I had a slightly different value set than I do now. Right. And, when I had children, it changed my value sets and things like that. So we will progress through life as long as we have a clear vision on where we want to go at the end point. It's kind of like you're a pilot. So correct me if I'm wrong, but as a pilot, you set your destination and you're pretty much blown off course all the way along the process, wind shear and everything else that happens. I don't know enough about being a pilot, but if you leave from, say, Boston and you fly to San Francisco, you're probably going to come off course a little bit, but you're always constantly focused on getting to San Francisco. And one of the things that I love in your book, and I love the stories especially, about discipline, because you talk a lot about discipline and how discipline carries you through, and you were taught a really great lesson from your father about discipline. If I recall correctly, when you were in college, like you said, you just wanted to graduate, but you weren't really sure what you wanted to do. So you kind of said, you know what, I'm going to come out of college and I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And then you got home after driving all night long, and your father had a different view on what you were going to do with your life. And what I found fascinating was your dad's resolve to push you in the right direction regardless. And
that's the key. That's the key, Doug. Parents are there for a reason. And thank goodness I had a good father. And he could see what I couldn't see. He had the vision that I did not have. or I was like 19 or 20 at the time. And I just didn't have that vision that my father had. And so, he said, you're going to graduate from college, or you're going to leave home with nothing on, as you would. You're going to be penniless and clothesless. You're not going to have anything. And he said, you're going to go out of the world like you came into it, with nothing. And so he wanted to make that point to me. And thank goodness, that we have parents. So we have mentors. If you not have a father or mother, maybe you have a mentor, somebody who will lead you in the right direction, because you can't see everything when you're that young. Okay. In fact, people were asking me recently in an interview, what am I doing now? I'm not sitting on a rock in Hawaii. I'm growing. I'm continuing. I have ideas. I'm finishing my third book. I have this view of not stopping. That even though I use the word retired, I'm not really retired, and since the word that I'm just playing golf or doing some innocuous thing, I actually have some goals, some ideas, and things I want to accomplish before I leave this earth. And so. I'm not going to leave laying on a bed. I'm going to leave standing vertically, and I may fall over when I go, but I'm not going to be doing nothing. And so no matter how old you are, no matter where you are in your career path, you still got to keep moving forward. I don't care if you're 105. You want to keep moving forward and doing something with your life. And I sincerely believe that I just got through writing an article this morning, it has to do with semiconductor supply and demand. I wrote about that. And so, I just want to keep progressing. I want to keep producing. And I want to do the tough things first every day. What I call myself is I'm an eccentric disciplinarian. Okay. That I have the same discipline, the same routine. It's called the extreme routine. Okay. I'm up at 6 a.m. I'm exercising for an hour and a half. I shower, eat my breakfast, and then start with the toughest thing I got to do for the day. And then I had my podcast with you, and I was all ready for that. And I have something beyond. When we complete this podcast, I'll be on to something else. I don't want you to think that just because I've reached this point in my life that it's all over. It's not over.
No, I always say to people that, as adults, we're just an extension of our childhood, and it just continues on as we grow into more in different aspects of our lives. That's all. And what I love about what you just said, Ray, was, and I don't think a lot of people catch this, but of all the people that I interview or I've had the pleasure of being in their company, one of the success factors that I see is they get up a little bit early, and they focus on their human health right in the beginning, and they do those tough things first, right out of the gate. That seems to be a character trait. Common thread, absolutely. And, a lot of people will go, well, geez, how important is that to me growing a business? Right? But to me, it's everything, because you're setting your day up. And you're setting your day up for success right from the beginning. You're getting up and you're moving. How important is that?
Well, Doug, it's you talk about everybody that you've talked to has basically the same objective, same thread, and that is their health. Okay, and it's the same thing with your company. Is your company's health. The first thing when I was running my company, the first thing I did was worry about the company's health. Okay, how are the people? How's my numbers? How are my customers? I mean, I had the company's health is built around all the factors that your body's health is focused on. And so, you want that healthy company. You want to make sure you have enough reserves to carry you forward during bad times. You want to make sure that your employees are happy and energetic, enthusiastic when they come to work. You want that. You want a good company health. And so, we talk about, going to the doctor, to a regular physical checkup. Do the same thing with your company. To go through a physical checkup. You have a board of directors meeting maybe, or you have a good CFO or other mentors, and just you want to keep the pulse of the company. You want to make sure that it's healthy, that there's no arrhythmias and there's no problems that need to be repaired or fixed. And so, the little things can turn into big things if you don't keep your eye on the ball. So, you want to make sure the health of the company is good. And that's the first thing I did every single time I went into work, as I checked the health of the company.
Well, the little things can turn into big things if you don't keep your eye on the ball, folks. That's sound advice. We're talking with Ray Zinn. He wrote a book called Tough Things First, but he's the Silicon Valley's longest serving CEO. Had a company called Micrel, and they went IPO and sold the company off. We're talking a lot about growth and longevity. And Ray, one of the things that I find that entrepreneurs do, and which affects their revenue significantly, is they don't really know how to focus. And they get in, they have this vision, they get going, then they run up against obstacles. And you talk about focus in your book and, knowing what to keep your attention on and how to respond to it. And there's a short-term and a long-term focus. How did you balance that as you were building your company over the 37 years?
Well, as I pointed out just a second ago, there's that day-to-day focus of the company health. Okay, you're not gonna have a long term if your short term is unhealthy. Okay, you got to take care of yourself. Okay, your body, your company is part of your body. And so you want to make sure that, the day-to-day things are taken care of. And then if you're healthy, then you can talk about running that marathon. But if you're not healthy, you're not probably going to get out of bed. So that's a very important ingredient. And one of the things I'd like to address with your listeners is the golden rule. That's the way I always operated. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I always said, whether it be my customers, whether it be my employees, I said, what would I like if I were on the other side, or if I were a customer, or if I were an employee? What would they want from what would I want from them? And so one of the things I talk about with my people is, are you living the golden rule? If you're a sales guy, or if you're a manufacturing person, and so the policy that we had at Micrel with regard to customers is the golden rule. In other words, my customers want quality and they want service. That's the two prime driving factors that customers want. If you go and look at reviews on Amazon for a product, you'll notice that none of the customers are complaining about price. They don't talk about price. They talk about service and quality. That's what they want. Okay, that's what your employees want. They want service and quality of their job and service. Are you taking care of them? That's what customers want. That's how you grow your business. Is making sure your customers are happy. And I don't know of an unhappy customer because they're no longer a customer. Okay, as I tell my people, it's easier for us to keep an old one than it is to find a new one. So I want to keep my customers happy. Okay, and that means I got to serve the living daylights out of them. I mean, I'll tell you what. I told my salespeople, when a customer calls, you pick that phone up instantly, and you act friendly. Even if they're angry, you act friendly. And so that's the way we were able to hang on to our customers. The other thing, Doug, that was important was price. Okay, customers don't like price changes. Their products last about 5 years. That's the length of a normal product. They don't want the price, their costs to go up and down. They prefer, they don't want your price to go down and go back up again. They want stable pricing. Okay. And so you have to work out in your business, how can you have stable pricing? Because your cost of materials are going to go up and down. You're going to have all kinds of issues like that. But if you have stable cost and your pricing is stable, your customers are going to be happy. They want stable pricing, Doug.
Which I would attribute back, Ray, to that being service, right? If you can get stability in that, then you're giving service, and the perception of value, what people selling on value is, people always look at exactly what you said, quality and service. Those are the two main driving factors in a buying decision, in buying confidence. So if we can instill that, like you did with your salespeople, hey, listen, even if you're having a bad day and they're having a bad day, you're not going to have a bad day. You're going to make their day better. And that is a service related growth factor, which a lot of people don't think about. They don't think about the way somebody answers their phone could be a revenue loss or a revenue gain in the company. And so those of you who haven't trained your folks to be consistent on how they answer the phone, take the lesson from Ray. Very strong, wonderful lesson about how to drive revenue growth.
So here's what we do. When we answer the phone, we say, well, the first thing we say is, how can I help you? That's the first words out of our mouth. How can I help you? That's the key. You might say, hi, this is so-and-so, this is Doug, or this is Ray. How can I help you today? I'm here to serve you. I'm here to take care of your problems. What can I do to help you? That makes the customer smile. I mean, he may be so mad he wants to spit, but if you say, how can I help you? That's what he wants. He didn't call you to find out what the weather is. He's got a problem. He wants your help.
And if you can solve that problem, folks, then you will be his best friend. And guess who he's going to think of when he has a time and need for a product sale or service sale from you? So,
exactly.
Ray, in the book, I'm kind of following the book a bit, but you talked about finance and that entrepreneurs need a grasp on their financial numbers. And I have found with many, many clients I've worked with, they don't have a firm grasp on they sort of like push it off to their CPA, or they push it off to the CFO, and they're not reviewing the numbers. And I teach them to review the numbers in their sales journey and in their business in general. I think it's a critical factor in the growth and longevity of a company. Do you feel the same, or is it something?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, if I ask you, Doug, what is your resting heart rate? What would you say?
Honestly, I wouldn't even know, right? I should.
Well, your resting heart rate should be around 60. Okay. So you should know those numbers. Okay. You should also know how many breaths you're taking in an hour. Okay. You should know how many steps you need to take in a day, just to be healthy. I mean, there are certain things that that you need to know to be healthy. And so there are certain parameters with regard to running a company that the numbers have to match. You want to make sure your cash flow is positive, and you should know what those numbers are. You should know what your break-even point is. You should know how many days, what your receivables outstandings are, what your payable outstandings are. You should know all those off the top of your head. You don't have to be an accountant. You don't have to be, a finance genius. You just have to have a memory. If you don't keep notes, like, just keep a little notepad there that has those little like cheat sheets that you keep track of, that okay, these are the parameters. This is what my current ratio, my long-term debt is. This is what you just have those little numbers written down, and those numbers, and you commit them to memory. And if you don't know what current ratio is or quick ratio, you look them up. You can Google. You can find anything. So, become familiar with your numbers. Know what those numbers mean. I mean, you said just a second ago that you didn't know what your resting heart rate is, but you should know, Doug. Those are important parameters that help keep you going. And so the same thing with running a company. There are certain parameters that you must know: your debt to equity, your current ratio, your asset ratio, all those things that go into running a successful company. Even though you may be an engineer and not have the finance background, it makes no difference. There's certain parameters that you need to know and understand. It's like operating a car. You should know what the brakes are. You should know what the throttle is. You should know how the car functions, or you shouldn't be in it. Don't try to drive a car or fly an airplane. Don't fly an airplane unless you know how to do it. Okay, so. Don't run the company unless you know how to do that. And so there are certain things you can do to learn. There are classes you can take. There's night classes you can take. There's online classes available that will help you become familiar with the certain health parameters that are necessary to run your company.
So Ray, I have a favor to ask of you, which is when you talk to my wife, don't tell her I didn't know my resting heartbeat, because she was a fitness instructor for 14 years. So she'll come back at me on that one.
Well, do you know how long it takes you to test it?
A minute, 2 minutes. I don't know.
Exactly. A minute. Take a minute. You can just measure it for 10 seconds and then multiply it times 6. So that's what you do, And so, in 10 seconds, if your resting heartbeat is 10 beats in 10 seconds, and times 6, 60 beats a minute. So it's simple to do. I mean, again, running a company, while I don't want to make it sound like it's nothing to us, like flying an airplane. Okay. And by the way, if you're flying a little Cessna 152, compare that with a Boeing 737 or a 767, you have to know a little bit more. In other words, as your plane gets bigger, as you start flying more passengers, you're going to have a little more training, a little more safety knowledge. Okay. So same thing with running your company. You're a little tiny company, maybe 2 or 3 people in a company. It's like flying a 152. It's not much to learn, not much to know. But if you get to being a 1,000 people company, like on an airplane, if you're carrying several hundred passengers, you're going to have to know that airplane's bigger. There's more parameters you got to know. And you're generally flying further and not flying a shorter distance. You're flying a long ways. And so there's a lot of information you need to do it, to be successful and land that plane safely with your passengers.
And, you tell stories about when you were flying. I remember, you put the plane on autopilot and it dipped down and you weren't paying attention. You were having a conversation with your wife and all of a sudden the siren goes off and it just wails and gives you like, hey, Ray, we're going to hit the mountain. Right. And you talk about key indicators, and I've always find key indicators, and usually there's, half dozen of them or whatever that are just critical. And one of them evidently in your health is knowing your resting heart, right? So that one I stand corrected on. So thank you. And, but in a business, we also have these key indicators. And if I recall correctly, you said in the writing that it was about 6 or so that you kind of focused on in the airplane, but really kind of applies to business. Are there more than, how many key indicators that should people be looking at, or does it depend if they're flying the Cessna or they're flying a Boeing 737?
Well, the parameters are the same. I mean, when you're flying an airplane, there's the 6 primary instruments that you follow. Okay, we call it doing the scan, and you're scanning those things constantly. And they're the same on a Boeing. Okay, on a large plane. There's a scan pattern you want to do. Maybe you're slightly scanning differently, but the scan pattern is the same. And so you're still doing that when running your company, whether you're running a 3-person company or you're running a 1,000 people company. There's a pattern that you want to keep track of. Again, you want to make sure you have at least a quarter's worth of cash in the bank. You want to make sure that you're what your break even is, and that you know what your costs are, what your gross margins are. And so there's a scan pattern that you need when you run the company that apply to a 3-people company or a 10,000 people company. It's just the bigger the company, the bigger the problem. Okay. But the pattern's the same. The scan's the same. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And thanks for sharing that. We're talking with Ray Zinn, and he wrote a book called Tough Things First. I've read this book now twice, and I'm going back through it again. And here's the thing I want everybody to understand. Go get the book. I don't push books on this podcast, as you know, but go get this book. This is the entrepreneurial, I'll call it the strategic entrepreneurial Bible that you should actually be having and reviewing. Each time I read it, I learn new things. And again, I've read lots of books, guys and gals. And the bottom line is this one, I think, is the number one. So go get the book, Tough Things First, on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble. Ray, I could keep you on here all day, but I know you're a busy guy and you got other things to do. I'd love to talk about one thing in that you wrote about, which is intuition, entrepreneurial intuition. And you said in the book, and I agree with this, that entrepreneurial intuition doesn't exist. It's driven by the relentless observation of everything. And the, having principles, wisdom, and knowledge, and being able to make decisions quickly through the intuition. And the reason I bring this up is because, as I'm affiliated with the training industry, so many people talk about, well, go with your intuition, go with your gut intuition, but they don't really describe what that is. And you did a great job, very clear job for me and understanding what that is. Would you describe for people listening today, what is intuition and why is it so important in a business?
Okay, so knowledge without experience is teaching. Okay, experience without knowledge is you're just a journeyman. And I don't mean to minimize both those, teaching and being a journeyman, but the knowledge plus experience is wisdom. Okay, so what you have is you combine your knowledge, which you need to achieve, with that experience that you, when you grow and develop in your particular field, and the proper application of that is wisdom. It's wisdom that drives intuition. So, if we don't have knowledge or experience, then it's like flipping a coin. You're going to be right half the time. Okay. But that's not good in running a business. You don't want to run a business only half the time. In other words, correctly. Those are not the ones that succeed. So in order to get that number up to more like 75 to 80% correct decisions, you can say, okay, then how do I do that? How do I get from just flipping a coin to being able to beat the odds, where I'm now making decisions 75 to 80% of the time is correct? Okay, that's where that's a combination of that knowledge and experience. That's how you get there. So when you say, just follow your gut, okay, that when we talk about that comes from our knowledge and experience combined. Okay, that is the gut experience, that gut knowledge that you have. Follow your intuition. So in other words, get out of your mind, get out of your heart, and just look at, your heart is in the middle of your chest, your brain is in the top of your head, and your gut's down below. Okay. So we don't say follow your heart or your mind. We don't say that. We say follow your gut, because that's a different part. In other words, it's down in the bowels of your, that's reaching. That's getting out of your mind, out of your heart. Your heart's a good thing because it's sensitive, and your feelings are in your heart, and your mind is where your knowledge is. That's your brain. That's your background. Okay. And then you combine that with that feeling that you get, just knowing, I've been there before. Oh, I know that. I mean, I feel that. That's in your gut. That's the bowels. That's down deep in the heart of your system. Okay. And that's why we say follow your gut, because, it's combining all that knowledge, all that experience, and coming up with the right answer. It's been my experience that good entrepreneurs, really top-notch people, make decisions in half the time and with twice the results that the others do. Okay, so the good thing about having that gut knowledge is that you're quick. You can make quick decisions, and they're better. They're more accurate.
And I love this. There's a story in the book. I'm going to paraphrase it, and you can please chime in. Because intuition sometimes is based on knowledge. Not sometimes. It is based on knowledge, based on experience, and then we start contrasting and looking at things, and we try to solve problems, or we come up with ideas, which some people call vision, right? I have this vision for this product or this program. And you did this while working for a company. And I have to say, this is I'm trying to use a word that I won't offend people, but strong backbone in your decision on this one. You were working for a company. You you were tasked to sell to Texas Instruments, which was a very difficult company to get into. And you tried multiple times, and at the urging of your sales manager, you kept going, and you came up with a really creative way of getting in. We don't have to go into that. But when you got there, you had this idea of this wafer stepper. Is that right?
Correct. Uh-huh.
So the wafer stepper. Now, here's the thing I want people to understand. This didn't exist when you hit Texas Instruments. Nobody had this, but you had this understanding and the knowledge, and you looked at it and you said, well, I think this would work in the industry. And your company wanted Texas Instruments to buy their existing equipment. But what you said was, hey, I think I'll come in and I'll pitch this idea on a wafer stepper. And you got into the door, and folks, read the book. I mean, it's nothing short of brilliant on how he got into the office. But when you got into the office, you started explaining this, and you were thinking, well, it might create some interest, and then all of a sudden they bit on the wafer stepper, which your company didn't even have. It wasn't even produced. And then since they bid on it, you kind of gave them a proposal. You threw out a proposal and you said, well, I'll shoot for the moon, so to speak. And back then it was like $800,000 for this. And, we need a minimum of 4 or something like that. So it was really a $3 million deal you put together in the ether. There was nothing that you could even deliver. And Texas Instrument came back and said, yeah, no problem. Here you go. Right? Now you have to take this back to your company, and engineering doesn't even know about it. No one knows about this idea, but you just made a $3 million plus sale. and the response from the company, I found just reminiscent of something I did, and I can explain. And so you sold this thing. Now your company has to deliver upon this thing. Your boss comes in, puts a letter on your desk, and basically says, what, there's no chance we can deliver on this? Or how did this all play out? Because this is where intuition comes in seeing down the line and seeing and matching. But you stayed consistent with that focus and discipline through this whole process, even though there were a lot of pushback points. Were you thinking at some time, Ray, like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Well, I did, but I knew it was possible. I mean, I had that intuition. I had that experience, that knowledge that we could do it. I saw what the equipment was capable of doing. And I thought by kind of thinking outside the box a little bit, that we could make it happen. And they did. It cost them a ton of money. Their heart wasn't really in it. And that was, I think, the biggest problem is the lack of their heart being in it, because you have to be behind something if you want to make it happen. But I saw it through. I made it happen. I was a bit of a maverick. I mean, in the movie Top Gun, the main player is called Maverick. But he was somebody who thought outside the box. His superiors really didn't like Maverick, if you recall, in Top Gun.
Right.
Because he was always doing things different. Okay, he was not he was not a conformist. He wasn't stepping in line. And that was what was happening to me. I was a bit of a maverick. I was getting them to get outside their comfort zone. You get outside their cocoon. Let's try something. Let's do something difficult. Nothing in life worth having comes free. You have to look beyond the box, and then even further than that. You got to go further than just outside the box. You got to go over the horizon. You got to look beyond the mountains. You got to be able to see beyond. And that's what a visionary can do. A visionary can see what others cannot see. That's what a visionary is, to be able to see what they can't see. And Matt, that is so important, to be a visionary, to be able to see what others cannot see. Okay. Because they're stuck in the box. The lights are out to them. Okay. They don't know how to get outside the box. And so they just, and it's comfortable staying inside the box, staying inside your cocoon, staying in your comfort zone. Those are all comfortable, but that's not how we grow. We don't grow by just being comfortable. You got to push yourself, and I call it learning to love the things you hate, just overcoming the things that are just holding you back. You have far more potential and capability than you think you do. You have to say, I'm far more capable than what it appears. Okay. And I have to go find out where those boundaries are. And so you just keep pushing yourself. And that's why I ultimately grew the company to be a multi-million-dollar company, was by just keep pushing the boundaries. Okay. Just keep saying, keep moving the goalpost. We can do better. We can go further. If you could have a complete video history of what happened when I started the company in 1978 to when I sold it, you would see a heck of a story. You would see all the ups and downs. I went through 8 downturns that I had to deal with. I had to deal with loss of important people. I had every obstacle that every company has been faced with. I had that obstacle to face. When I went public in December of 1994, I lost my eyesight completely when I was in London doing the roadshow. Lost it completely. Okay. I was flying blind. I had to give presentations that I couldn't see anymore. You talk about, and at the same time, I had to put all the thoughts in my head about, hey, I'm just going blind. What's that going to do the rest of my life? I had to put those aside and forget about my health issue and focus on the job of convincing investors to invest in the company. Think about that. I lost my eyesight instantly, Doug, and still made a huge presentation to the point where the company's stock was overprescribed.
Well, you're doing the tough things first. You're tackling the difficult things. You're doing the tough things first and doing the things that you, even if through the setbacks and the rebound, struggle is guaranteed in business, right? I mean, it's guaranteed. It's what we do with that struggle that determines whether or not we're successful or not in the endeavor that we're going through. And what I love about this book, because this book comes, and again, I'm going to keep promoting this book, guys. The book talks about all of these facets, and some people would say, well, these are soft, skills or whatever. No. This is the common thread that I have seen through companies who have built into the hundreds of millions, into the billions of dollars. There is a common pattern, and Ray, you lay it out masterfully in the book, and I really appreciate you doing so. And I really appreciate and thank you for being here, because, what we're doing, someone's going to listen to this and they're going to go, oh my gosh, that's where I'm stuck. Or, this is where I need to go. So go buy the book, guys. Ray, if somebody wants to get a hold of you and is there some other place that they could go to learn more about you or contact your company or whatever method you would like to share with the listeners, if so?
Yeah, we have a website, toughthingsfirst.com. They can go there. There's ways to ask me questions. There's ways to put your comments in. We have all of our articles on there. We have all of the musings I write every day are on there. They can follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We're on all the normal social media channels. We're pretty easy. We're easy to find, easy to get to. And we're happy to answer questions of people that have questions that would like us to help them in a particular area. We're more than willing to help them. We're here to help. We'd like to see that people are successful. We're here to help them become successful. So please follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter or Facebook, go to my website, toughthingsfirst.com, and learn more about who I am and what I can do. I'm on Wikipedia. You can look me up on Wikipedia. So we're easy to find.
Go find them, folks. We'll put all of these links in the show notes for everybody as well. And Ray, I want to thank you for being here. Again, we're talking to Mr. Ray Zinn, Silicon Valley's longest serving CEO. He wrote an excellent book called Tough Things First. Ray, I'm very grateful you're here. I know you didn't have to be, and I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to share your knowledge with people today. via the CEO Sales Strategy podcast. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for inviting me, Doug. It's been a pleasure.
You are welcome, sir. Wow. Hey, that was awesome. Right. I have read this book twice now. I'm going to go back through it again and again and again. Each time I go through it, there's another layer within. I don't know if you've ever had this experience where, you watched a movie and then you go back and you watch the movie the second time and you're like, well, geez, I didn't realize that scene happened this way. And then, you watch it 2 or 3 more times, you'll find other things. Oh, well, the actor, had this inflection on this line or whatever. The same thing happens with this book. It is really a training course for how to be an entrepreneur and how to do it for growth and longevity. So I highly recommend you go get the book. And I pitched the book, I think 4 times in the podcast because it is that good. Ray is an amazing guy. He spends his time between, Montana and California. He's at a place in his life where money's not an issue any longer. It's all about legacy for the gentleman, and it's all about giving back. And you'll hear that throughout everything that you do with him. And, he's got other resources that you can go at. So it's been a pleasure. So here's the thing, guys. If you like this podcast, please go up and give it a 5-star review. I would be very grateful. If you have comments or questions, send them in. Send them to Doug at Business Success Factors on things or topics you'd like me to cover. And I'd be happy to do that. I'm going to continue to keep bringing you high quality people and high quality content so that you can learn, and Ray and I discussed, struggle is guaranteed in business, and success is not. But success is predicated or built off of what you do with the struggle. And so part of what the mission here on the CEO Sales Strategy podcast is to make sure that you get the information so that you can have when you hit a roadblock or you hit a setback or, or you avoid the roadblock because you've had the information up front. Again, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategy Podcast. Go out, sell a lot, make a lot of money, and be happy.